Okay, thank you. Good
The meeting's
evening.
being
This is
recorded.
Sean O'Rourke. Today is Monday, June 8th, and the time is 8 p.m. This is the regular meeting of the Monroe Town Council, as is customary before the start of our meetings. Would you all please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance
to
to the flag of the United States of America
and
to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Please allow me to confirm the presence of those town council members and any other staff or anticipated participants are present and are able to hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Dee Dee Martin. Dee Dee Martin.
Did you pen? You left your pen.
Dee Dee Martin. Jen Aguilar.
Here.
Jason Maurer.
Jason Maurer, present.
Terry Rooney.
Here.
Jonathan Formicella.
Jonathan Formicella here.
Tony Scott.
Tony Scott here.
John O'Rourke here. Kevin Reed.
Kevin Reed here.
Enid Lapellis.
Here.
And back to Dee Dee Martin. Dee Dee?
I'm here.
Okay, great. Okay, all members of town council are present. Staff and other participants, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. First Selectman Ken Kellogg.
Ken Kellogg here.
Town Attorney Frank Lito.
Frank Lito, present.
Technology Director Paul Kroos.
Paul Course here.
Police Chief John Salvatore.
John Salvatore here.
Town Clerk Vita Stone. Town Clerk Vita Stone.
I'm here.
Okay. I hereby declare a quorum and call this meeting to order. A copy of the agenda and any related materials have been posted to and can be found on the Town of Monroe's website, www.monroect.org, for public inspection. I hereby appoint Town Attorney Frank Lito to serve as moderator of the meeting and to ensure that we are compliant with both state law and the governor's executive orders governing remote electronic meetings. At this time, I will ask the moderator and town attorney, Frank Lito, to introduce the rules of the remote electronic meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm looking forward to not having to do this for many more meetings. So here we go again. This public meeting is being conducted remotely in compliance with Section 1 of Governor Lamont's Executive Order 7B, which is dated March 14th, 2020. We are using GoToMeeting electronic conferencing technology. Using this technology, the public shall participate in real time in this meeting via computer, tablet, smartphone, or telephone using the access information set forth on the meeting agenda. Please be advised that each meeting has unique participation information, so please make sure that everybody's in the correct meeting this evening. Notice is further given that only 250 participants may access the meeting at any one time. Access to this meeting is granted solely by the technology provider on a first access basis, is not controlled by the town of Monroe. While it is anticipated we will not exceed the participant limit for this meeting, should it appear at any time that we're approaching said limit so that any member of the public may be denied access to the meeting, the chairman retains the right to adjourn and continue the meeting at a later date using technology more appropriate to ensure that all members of the public can participate. Please take notice of the following regarding this electronic meeting. It's being conducted in real time. It is open to the public. Any member of the public may listen or view this meeting anonymously. Its meeting is being recorded, and while you may think that your microphone is on mute, please make sure that it is, as the meeting may pick up anything that you say And furthermore, if you're using a smart device, it may pick up anything that is displayed on your screen. So please make sure that you have the appropriate settings. This recording shall be posted on the town's website within 7 days, and it will be made available to the public within a reasonable time upon written request via town hall. As set forth on the agenda, this meeting will feature public participation. Any written comments from the public regarding any business which would otherwise be germane to public participation and which has been received at least 1 hour before the start of the meeting will be read into the record during the public participation portion of the meeting. Before I turn the floor back over to the chairman, I'm just going to cover a few ground rules that you're all very used to by now, but yes, we want to continue to cover them to make sure that we have an accurate record and that everybody is audible. You're going to follow standard parliamentary procedure, but we ask that you follow special rules, including, as I said before, muting your microphone so we don't have background noise. Prior to speaking, do your best to try to state your name before you speak so that the record is clear. I know that's a difficult one. We all don't do a good job with that, but just try to remember that. Each of these chat room, these features have chat functions. The chat function will not be utilized. So please disregard it. We'll not be reading any comments that may appear in the chat function. With regards to business, again, you're all used to this by now, but the chair is going to introduce each matter on the agenda. If the subject of each motion or resolution is subject to a vote, the chair is going to ask for a second. After doing so, the chair is going to go in order, calling each of you by name, giving the opportunity to speak at least once on each topic. He will go through the order again and again until everybody's had the opportunity to speak, or using parliamentary procedure, someone calls for a proper vote. Please wait to comment on any issues before, please wait until you're recognized before you comment on any issues. Everybody's going to have an equal opportunity to speak. Once discussion is complete, the chair will call for a vote by roll call, which means he will call each of you by name and ask for your vote. The chair will then tally the votes and announce the vote and whether the motion passed or failed. Again, I remind you to mute your microphones and try to speak clearly when you are doing so. And with that, I'll turn the floor back over to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lito. Before proceeding here, I just wanted to appoint Jonathan Formicella for the position of parliamentarian for this meeting specifically. Before we continue, I understand that Councilmember Kevin Reed wishes to make a motion regarding the suspension of the rules of procedure.
Yes, thank you, Mr. O'Rourke. I move that pursuant to Article 7 of our Rules of Procedure, the Town Council suspend Rule 13, which requires all matters relating to the general government of the town and all agreements to which the town is a party be referred to L&A. The reason for this motion is that due to the coronavirus, our subcommittees, including L&A, have not met to consider the matters which appear on this evening's agenda, which otherwise would have been referred to and voted on by L&A as a conditioned precedent to appearing before the full body.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it,
Jason
Enid.
Mauer, second.
I second it.
Open the floor for discussion. Judy Martin,
No discussion.
Jennifer Aguilar,
Jen Aguilar, no discussion.
Jason Mauer,
Jason Mauer, no discussion.
Terry Rooney,
Terry Rooney, no discussion.
Jonathan Formicella,
Jonathan Formicella, no discussion.
Tony Scott,
Tony Scott, no discussion.
Sean O'Rourke, no discussion.
Enid
Kevin Reed?
Lapellis, no discussion. Oh, sorry.
Kevin Reed.
Kevin Reed, no discussion.
Okay. Then I call for a vote to accept the motion. Please answer yay or nay. Judy Martin,
Yes.
Jen Aguilar,
Jen Aguilar, yes.
Jason Mauer,
Jason Mauer, yes.
Terry Rooney,
Terry Rooney, yay.
Jonathan Formicella,
Jonathan Formicella, yay.
Tony Scott,
Tony Scott, yes.
Sean O'Rourke, yay. Kevin Reed,
Kevin Reed, yay.
Enid Lapellis.
Enid Lapellis, aye.
The motion passes 9-0. Going on to the consent calendar, are there any objections to passing the consent calendar as presented?
Mr. Vice Chairman, Jason Mauer.
Chair recognizes Jason Mauer.
I have a motion to amend the agenda before we get to the consent calendar. I move to add as communications G through Q, the emails received by the entire council, selectman's office, and Monroe Police Department by the following: Sarah Bott, Claire Collins, Samantha Mahoney, Michael Hayes, Meg Cardy, Hannah Fink, Justin Cavone, Olivia Dougherty, Lauren Davis, Isabella Rauchi, and Victoria Yannick, to be subsequently added to the packet and made part of the public record.
Second that.
Do I have a second?
Second. Jen Aguilar, second.
Okay, any discussion? Dee Dee Martin?
No discussion. I think everyone received those messages, so I think it's important that they be put into the record.
Jennifer Aguilar?
Jennifer Aguilar, no discussion. No further discussion.
Jason Mauer?
Jason Mauer, just simply to state that these were emails that were received by the entire council after the preparation of the agenda, and so were not able to be put onto the agenda beforehand. So it's just important for the purposes of freedom of information that they be added as communications that were received by town council.
Terry Rooney?
No discussion.
Jonathan Formicella?
Jonathan Formicella, just one question. Will we be adding all emails from constituents from this point forward that we received? We received other emails in the past concerning roadway conditions, if those would be added as well.
Mr. Vice Chairman, if I may, Jason Mauer.
Chair recognizes Jason Mauer.
I have no problem with that. The reason I initiated with these is because they are the only ones I have seen come through that were sent to the council as a whole, rather than individually to me as a councilman, whether to which I don't know whether the entire council received them or not. That is why I made it known for these ones specifically. But I do believe that any emails that come into the council as a whole should be made part of the public record, yes.
Okay, Tony Scott?
No discussion.
Sean O'Rourke, no discussion. Kevin Reed?
Kevin Reed, no discussion.
Enid Lapellis?
Enid Lapellis, no discussion.
So do we have to amend the motion to reflect that all emails will be entered into the record and passed on accordingly? Jonathan?
Yeah. Oh,
I have no
I wanted the TV one now. They're too close together. Thank you.
Jonathan?
Mr. Vice Chair, I have no motion.
Okay, so we can go on to a vote then, correct?
That's correct.
Dee Dee Martin?
Dee Dee Martin, aye.
Jen Aguilar?
Jen Aguilar, aye.
Jason Mauer?
Jason Mauer, aye.
Terry Rooney? Terry Rooney?
I apologize. I was on mute. My only concern with these emails at this point is that, are they pertaining to town business? Because I believe that the emails are in regard to an event that was not orchestrated by the town. I don't have a problem with the emails being presented. I just have that one question.
Jonathan?
That's not really a point of order or parliamentarian question. It's more of a public policy question that each member needs to decide for him or herself.
Okay.
Okay, so
Okay,
back to, Terry, could you repeat your vote?
Just aye. That's fine.
Jonathan Formicella,
Jonathan Formicella, aye.
Tony Scott,
Tony Scott, aye.
Sean O'Rourke, aye. Kevin Reed,
Kevin Reed, aye.
Enid Lapellis.
Enid Lapellis, aye.
Okay, the motion passes 9-0.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, this is Frank Lito, speaking as town attorney. I would just suggest that L&A follow up by reviewing the rules of procedure to, if that's something that this council wants to follow moving forward relative to communications, they should look at that procedure moving forward, because reviewing the communications, it's not so clear on what the intended direction of council is in that regard. I think you could read into I think it's there's a communications provision in the rules of procedure, but you may want to look at that, something to think about.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, it's Kevin, it's Councilman Reed. May I ask the town attorney a question?
Please, floor is yours.
Yes, Attorney Lito, just really quick, I'm assuming we can amend or change rules of procedure within its bi-yearly schedule, correct?
Absolutely.
If desired. Thank you.
Okay, so to clarify, we're passing the consent calendar with the amendment as described by Jason Maurer, and that vote was 9-0. So I hereby pass the consent calendar as presented with the amendments that have been presented. Communications, I hereby ask that the communication items A through F be referenced in the minutes of the meeting.
Mr. Vice Chair, Jason Maurer.
Go ahead, Mr. Maurer.
It just should be communications now should be A through Q.
A through Q. Noted. I hereby ask that the communications items A through Q be referenced in the minutes of the meeting. Thank you for that correction. Our next item will be public participation. Before going on to public participation, I would ask that Jonathan Formicella go over the guidelines for public participation. Jonathan?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Our guidelines for public participation during this remote meeting are on our agenda and follow our regular guidelines for public participation. Anyone who desires to address town council must adhere to the following rules of participation. At the start of public participation, the chair or moderator shall ask all persons desiring to participate to identify themselves by name one at a time. The chair or moderator shall create a list of the identified participants and shall, in their sole discretion, recognize each by name one at a time. Upon recognition, each participant shall state their full name and address for the record. All participants shall speak clearly in a civil, non-argumentative, and respectful manner. Comments shall be limited to 3 minutes. Comments shall be directed to the council as a whole and not to single out any member, individual, or entity. The chair may alter these rules from time to time in her or his sole discretion. Failure to comply with the rules or any other conduct which is disruptive to proceedings shall result in removal from the meeting. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Jonathan. Before going to public participation, I just want to remind those that are choosing to participate that these proceedings are being recorded. At this time, I'll ask the moderator and the town attorney, Frank Lito, to identify if there are any individuals who wish to participate in public participation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Are there any members of the public who wish to participate at this time in this public participation session?
Michael Hayes here. I'd like to participate.
Could you please repeat?
Michael Hayes. Hayes. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Anybody else wish to participate?
Yes, this is Lauren Godimer.
Okay, Lauren Godimer, Gotimer. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, that's 2 individuals. Anybody else?
Just take the damn thing off.
Anybody else? All right, Mr. Chairman, we have Mr. Hayes and Ms. Godimer. You can call on them in any order you choose, and I just remind them to state their name again and address for the record before they last. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Michael Hayes, please, the floor is yours.
Again,
Michael, before you go, Councilman Reed, if everybody could go on mute, just so we hear everything the public is trying to say. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult to hear them. Certainly, Michael, first out the gate, we want to make sure we hear every word. So go on mute.
Oh, okay, so the request is for everyone to go on mute so that Michael could be clearly heard. Going on mute.
Okay. May I begin?
The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. So I'd just like to begin by using my time to share a prepared statement that is a slightly modified version of the email that I've sent to Town Council, First Selectman, and the Police Department earlier this week. To whom it may concern. My name is Michael Hayes, and I am a lifelong resident of Monroe. Let me first thank the Monroe Town Council, Police Department, and Carlos Reynoso for facilitating a powerful and healing event on the green. However, I am writing to you today to express my concern and dissatisfaction with some of the things I did and did not hear on June 6th. I was disappointed that this platform was utilized by a former cop to draw attention away from the Black Lives Matter movement, and I was alarmed that there was no mention of police brutality or police reform. To pretend that our police department does not enforce unjust laws is a disservice to those who endure state violence. To imagine that individual action and self-reflection is enough to end racism in this town is dangerous for those who face discrimination every single day. I believe police violence isn't something that Monroe is simply immune to, but that must be actively resisted before it is able to infect our community. With this email, I'm asking for a public conversation that is open to any community member who would like to speak about the situation at hand. I also ask to note how Monroe abides by the recommended reforms summarized by the 8 Can't Wait campaign and is changing to ensure the safety and equal treatment that all our citizens rightfully deserve. Thank you for taking the time to listen to and consider my concerns. I look forward to working together to create a necessary change in Monroe. Sincerely, Michael Hayes. With that said, I'm here today because this moment has made me realize how little I actually know about how my home operates and the laws that govern it. I hope you will join me in my quest to educate myself and by proxy, the Monroe community. Thank you to everyone here for doing what they do. The importance of local government, and especially in times like these, cannot be overstated. Thank you. I yield my time.
Michael, my apologies if you've already said this, but did you state your address for the record?
9 Round Hill Drive.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your input.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
I call on Laura Godimer. I apologize if I slaughtered the name.
Sorry, it's Lauren.
Lauren,
And
sorry.
my address is 13 Meadowbrook Drive here in Monroe. I am the chair of the Monroe Youth Commission, and I just wanted to address town council in that we have had not fully appointed on our commission for over a year. I found out recently that the most recent appointment, Tracy, was appointed back in March, which I found by going through the minutes for town council. I, as the chair of the youth commission, was never informed, neither by anyone at town hall, to myself, nor to the youth commission email address. So I am concerned that appointments are being made and that commissions aren't being notified, but I'm also concerned that we still have 2 open positions. It is very hard to serve the youth of our town, to be their advocates, to stand up for them, and to be able to sponsor events and to do things on the behalf of the youth here in town with not enough support on our own commission. We currently, until recently, have only had 3 commissioners, which makes it extremely hard to do anything. As I'm sure you know, we have youth in town right now who want to be active and want to have their voices heard. And that's extremely hard not having a full commission. So I ask that you guys, as our town council, please help us fill the remaining spots so that we can have a full commission, so we can truly serve the youth of our town. I think it has been truly evident over the recent events that also the young people here in town want their voices heard and have important things to say, and they deserve to be heard. So I ask that you please keep that in mind when you're trying to fill the remaining spots on the Youth Commission.
Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you, Lauren. I'm asking one last time, is there any other individuals who have not spoken who wish to speak? If yes, please identify yourself.
I'm in the middle of this meeting.
Hearing none, moving on to action items.
Thank you. Get up there.
Bear with me a moment.
Phone's comfortable.
Okay, due to COVID-19 pandemic, there are no regular reports from our subcommittees at this time. However, I understand that Councilman Rooney was referred one matter as liaison to the Police Commission, Board of Police Commissioners. Terry, would you take the floor?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We did receive a list of questions from Councilman Jen Aguilar to the Chief of Police. I believe the Chief of Police is present. I just want to add that I believe the Monroe Police Department has done an exemplary job with their relationship with the community. And hopefully we can keep that relationship the way it's been moving forward. At this point, I'd like to move that to, I guess, Councilwoman Aguilar to ask questions. Thank you.
Councilman Aguilar, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Rooney. Mr. Salvatore, I know I sent you the questions, or I sent Mrs. Lapellis, Councilwoman Lapellis, the questions, but I can actually just sum them up in 2 questions. Can I ask you the questions? Should I just ask you the question to sum them up, or did you have any answers from what I sent? I'm not sure.
Well, I mean, would you like me to summarize what you asked us?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I would also like to, can I preface?
Point of order, Mr. Chair. It's Councilman Reed.
Mr. Reed.
I'm not sure how this.
May you ask Ms. Aguilar to just, I would love to know what the questions are. I don't want Mr. Salvatore just talking. In fairness to you, Jen, I'd love to hear him. That's all.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'd also like to preface it by echoing Mr. Rooney. And I think you're doing a fabulous job. I hear nothing but positive about our police force. And these are just questions that have been asked of me from the public. But I do think you're doing a good job, Mr. Salvatore, Chief Salvatore.
Thank you, Ms. Aguilar. I do have the questions. I could read them one at a time and answer them if you'd like.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Also, could I ask the chair, can I answer, I know this is unusual to answer someone public participation, but could I just address a comment that Mr. Hayes made, Mr. Michael Hayes made?
Jonathan Formicella, parliamentary ruling.
The chair can entertain any comment by the Chief of Police during his presentation.
By all means, Chief, please proceed.
Okay, I just wanted to address, he made a reference to 8 can't wait. I believe that in Monroe, we are basically addressing all the 8 issues that that group has has posted, I think, throughout the country. There are many parts of the country where they're not, but rather than get into a long, detailed explanation of what those are, I just want him to be assured that we are addressing them either by state law in Connecticut or in our general orders. But most of that's been driven by state law in the last several years because of reforms at our state legislature with the help of associations such as the Connecticut Police Chiefs Association, the ACLU, and the Black and Puerto Rican Caucus. And now I guess I'll go on to Ms. Aguilar's questions. The first one I received was, is there a civilian review board? No, there is not a civilian review board in town. The second question, is there independent oversight? That answer is yes. The oversight of the police department is the Board of Police Commissioners, which are citizens of town, electors of town, appointed by, well, nominated by their respective parties and appointed by the first selectman, and of course, as you know, with all appointments approved by town council. And of course, like all other commissions and boards in town, there's minority party representation on the commission. The third question was, are statistics tracked around race and racial disparities? And I assume you mean incidents of excessive force. And as a matter of fact, yes, part of the reforms, if you want to call it that, or the changes to state statutes or public acts in the recent years has been a statewide use of force form. It started off a couple years ago with the use of the controlled electronic weapons, in other words, tasers. And now it's expanded for all use of force, and it's a statewide form. It has to be prepared by each police department and submitted to the state on an annual basis. And questions regarding age, race, gender, etc., are included in the form. Those are of the people that are subject to the force. How many allegations of excessive force? I'm proud to say, I think because we use a lot of verbal persuasion in many of our contacts, and the fact that we really send an officer alone to anywhere, so we always have a, if you will, for lack of a better term, superiority in numbers, which often prevents physical violence. We've only had one complaint of excessive force in the last, 18, 19, and thus far in 2020. That force complaint was unfounded. Video of the body-worn cameras that officers had on at the time justified our finding. The person was obviously under the influence at the time of the event. Wounds or bruises that person indicated were caused by officers were displayed to the officers at the time of the event by the person, and on the video, the person indicates the injuries were received prior to the police even being there. It's from a day before or so. So the accumulation of the facts caused our investigation to be unfounded, and I concurred with that finding of the investigator. So that's only been the one complaint. All other uses of force, as I indicated before in that report, are reported to the state, and all have been justified, and no others have resulted in any I shouldn't say victims, but subjects complaining about excessive force by police. And the next question was, how many officers have been disciplined? I'm assuming you mean in relation to force, and none have, as I indicated in the prior answer. And do police wear body cameras at all time? Each officer in our field, each patrol officer, sergeant, and detective is issued their own body-worn cameras. They are worn in the field all the time by patrol officers and sergeants. Detectives wear them when they're executing search warrants or arrest warrants or in any way affecting an arrest. And if they don't have an interview at the station where we record via the iRecord system in the interview rooms, they wear the body-worn camera to record a statement that's made in the field. And I believe that was the last question you had.
That was the last question. Would Mr. Chair, would you entertain 2 more questions?
Please proceed.
Mr. Salvatore, I just have 2 more questions, and it's okay if you don't know the answer to these, and if you don't, it's fine that we can discuss it at another date. This was actually something that was brought up on Saturday. This first question was brought up on Saturday at the gathering, is what is being done at the local and state level to bring diversity to the Connecticut and Monroe police force? If there is anything being done, and if there's not, is there somewhere further somewhere forward that we can go from here?
As far as the state level, I can only limitedly comment on that. We do talk at our association, Connecticut Police Chiefs Association, of obviously the need to get more diverse applicants to apply. We're having a problem attracting qualified applicants of all race and ethnicities. And unfortunately, I think there's been a trend in the last couple of years to almost delegitimize our profession. And this, as horrible as the incident in Minnesota was, the amount of media coverage of all police incidents of abuse of their authority are broadcast and publicized so much, I think it's affecting our ability to attract a lot of candidates for this job. And I'm not saying that the abuse of authority should be ignored, but we have well over 750,000 police and law enforcement officers in this country. And I have to believe the overwhelming majority, at least everyone I've worked with for the most part over my career, have been dedicated officers who perform their job without any consideration of the person they're helping's race or ethnicity. I know that's not always the case, and I know that even 1% is way too many. And we discussed that. As far as attracting the applicants, it's often hard to try to attract a person from various cultural differences from the majority of our community when we don't have openings all the time. We have a relatively small force. So we often go to job fairs, for example, at the community colleges in Bridgeport, at the universities, but we may not have an opening at that time. And by the time we have an opening come around, we don't get that. We don't get very many of the applicants from the different diverse cultures. We do announce our openings through the Connecticut Chiefs and the Connecticut Police Academies or Post Training Council's site, so that we are broadcasting it throughout Connecticut and every community, along with multiple departments in the state. So we try to attract from different communities so that we can hopefully get diverse people, but it's been very difficult. I'm not saying we've been doing the greatest job, but we do try, and it is a topic of discussion and consideration by us.
Thank you. That was a great answer. I actually understand it completely, because I feel like in this small town, it is a hard question to answer. My second and last question is, and I actually think you answered this, what development are we working on as a town and in your capacity in the state, and how can we prevent issues of racial bias and profiling in the police department in the future?
Yeah, I really have to believe that we don't racially profile. I know there's some people came up to me even Saturday to discuss incidents that they've experienced. Sometimes it's just a misunderstanding of what our role is and what may have happened. I can honestly say that people that believe that we're stopping minorities at night, really, I think, have it wrong. We can't really tell who's driving a car once it gets after dark. It's very difficult to tell who's in a vehicle, and officers often don't know until they walk up to the window. But talking about making motor vehicle stops, we report all of our motor vehicle stop statistics to the state of Connecticut. It's done now through our in-car system, so it's done via computer, and all the race, ethnicity, age is now conveyed to the state and is tracked, and periodically, once a year, basically, the Institute for Municipal and Regional Policy out of the Central Connecticut State University has been charged basically by the state with collecting that data and reporting back to us. When they see what seems to be somewhat of a disparity in the stops, they sit down with the police department. We of the last 4 years, I believe that these statistics have been conducted this way. We were on a list once of maybe having an issue. We sat down with the Institute people and we explained the areas where they saw those high numbers, and they were obviously on made roads, Route 25 in particular, which has a lot of transient traffic. It goes right through this town. And I tell them a lot of that is even out-of-state traffic. If you sit there and watch for a while, you see a lot of New York plates. And when we sat down and discussed further all the routes, they realized that it was just one of those little, it is a little disparity. It popped up, but there was an explanation for us, and they can't find any other reason to indicate that there is any profiling occurring.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, that answers all my questions. Thank you, Chief Salvatore. And I would just like to, again, thank you for your service. Thank your entire department for their service and their continued dedication to Monroe and the citizens of Monroe. And I hope that the young adults that we did hear from in the last weekend will reach out to you if they have any concerns.
Thank you. And some of them did take my number, so we'll see. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Moving on to action item G, First Selectman's update.
Thank you, Mr. O'Rourke. Appreciate it. I just wanted to start out by just addressing a couple of the comments from earlier today, earlier in this meeting. One, I just want to acknowledge that obviously I received some of the same communications that you added to your agenda tonight, and I did share those as well with the Chief of Police and the Superintendent of Schools, since they were referring to matters for police and the Board of Education, as well as our Chairman of the Board of Ed, Donna Lane, so that she's aware of those as well and can be part of that conversation and know those individuals that had questions. So I appreciate that, and I am responding to those individuals as well, so their concerns are acknowledged and we continue the conversation. I wanted to address real quick just some comments regarding the appointment to the Youth Commission. I am aware that there's 2 vacancies out of the 7 on youth. I had been in touch with the vacancy chair of that party to ensure that they're aware of that. I'm sure they're working on it. As far as the being notified of appointments, it is policy and procedure that all appointment letters are carbon copied to the chair of that particular board or commission. And for whatever reason it may not have occurred for the recent appointment in March. If that did not occur, I apologize. We will have my office look at that and make sure that is corrected if that did not occur that last time. So with that, I wanted to go on to COVID. So we are at 106 cases. The state has kind of broken out. They're now reporting laboratory confirmed cases versus probable cases separately. There's 100 laboratory confirmed, 6 probable. Probable just means it was based upon probably symptoms and not necessarily receiving a positive test, but I'm assuming some kind of clinical evidence that suggested it was most likely COVID. The health department obviously is still very much involved in this. I know some of the questions have arisen in the past about the concept of contact tracing. That's something that was done very early on in this pandemic, and then on a state level was deprioritized, I guess, if you will. It was not something that was maintained for a variety of reasons. One of which being that there's a certain part in the process where it's not a good use of resources. That has changed, as I'm sure everyone's aware. The state has gone out and purchased technology to be used statewide for local health departments, local health districts, and the state to be able to do this in a more efficient manner. The state has also engaged hundreds of state public health workers and or academic public health students to be a labor force to support the contact tracing effort. So that system is one that you may have seen reported that about a third of the local health departments and districts in the state are up on. I wanted to ensure that the council is aware that Monroe is one of those health departments. We are on the system. So that said, I wanted to just talk briefly about the governor's phase 2 plan. I'm sure everyone saw the update. It did come out and some of the specific sector rules. We're opening up on the phase 2 on June 17th now. It does include indoor dining. I know there was some questions about those establishments that already have outdoor dining and how that would impact that. So just so the whole council is aware, the emergency outdoor dining permits will remain in force during phase 2, and restaurants that have that can use their indoor phase 2 compliant seating. As long as they're following all those rules, they can do it in concert with the outdoor dining that they have approval for already, or any future approval that other establishments may want. There's also recreation, movie theaters, gyms, fitness centers, nail salons, massage, lots and lots of sector rules for every single type of business. We are pouring through all that, have been over the weekend, so that we can communicate with those businesses and answer questions and get them information. And kind of consistent with that, and to that end, one of the things that I have done to assist in that and many other efforts here is added a temporary position for economic recovery in response to this pandemic and to mitigate the hazards that are occurring and to work towards getting our economy back up and running, and to assist with all the many issues that are going on, particularly not just with these businesses, but certainly an awful lot of that is what's going on, and that is moving along very well. There's a lot of communication occurring. We're trying to get a few other frameworks in place to establish even stronger ongoing communication modalities and ways to reach out to our businesses going forward for not just this, but in other areas as well. Again, the position is temporary. It is, as part of the emergency response effort, something that we will be applying for disaster relief funding to support. And I do want to recognize, though, that I will, as part of this, be able to, as a community, evaluate the concept going forward as well. Although this is not just economic development, it is a fundamental aspect of the role, and I think this will allow us to evaluate that further. And I want to be obviously clear that if there was a similar permanent role, obviously that would be something that if there is a net return to our taxpayers, I would certainly be willing to propose it. This would be something that obviously would have to come through this body for review at that point. As far as some town services, I think everyone probably heard from my update that Library to Go will be resuming on June 15th. We are working on the plan for indoors, but like most other libraries in the area, there's a lot of work to do for that particular facility. We're still doing a lot of that right now, and we're going to open it up to some limited indoor in the near future, but we don't have a date just yet. But June 15th, we will start the Library to Go up again. For Parks and Rec, camping is going to open up again on Friday. We've gotten several permit reservations already today. The Summer Fun Days Camp program will be up and running June 22nd, following all the rules that are required there. I'm sure a lot of people want to know about the pool and the lake. I don't have a final answer yet, but I am going to endeavor to have one this week. The final rules did not come out until this weekend. Some things are better than what we expected. Some things a little different, I guess, than what we had expected. So I am reviewing that right now with our Parks and Rec director, with HR, with our emergency management team, and we're gonna do everything we can to be able to provide as much service as we can. So we'll have more information later this week, hopefully, on how we if we can proceed, and if so, how we're going to do it. Town hall reopening. My thought process at this point is we're probably about a couple of weeks away where we'll be able to start opening up town hall to public access by appointment. We are still working out with a lot of the necessary facility enhancements that we want to incorporate. Some of those supplies haven't only been ordered, have not arrived yet. Things like plexiglass dividers and a lot of the other stuff we're working on. So we are in the process of doing that. Meetings in the near term, as far as based on guidelines and what we've been talking about, we'll probably have to unfortunately remain remote in the near term. The guidelines as of today, still we're sticking to the 10 for indoor meetings was the recommendation. And of course, obviously, if we want to ensure the public be able to visit us live and in person, then that would be a challenge. At some point, I would like to be able to transition to at least have some of the boards and commissions be able to meet in person, but we'll have to wait a little bit longer to see when we can accommodate that. COVID-19 costs. I just wanted to give an update on kind of where we are. I'll be kind of refining this in more detail for the Board of Finance as well, but I wanted to let the council know. We have a couple of, there are some information that's come out from the state relative to relief funding. We have been advised that the state has established a coronavirus municipal relief fund, and that is something the state put together based upon some data they collected several weeks ago in terms of estimates of, it was a whole variety of things that they asked us, but the long and the short of it is we received last week information on what the requirements will be for reimbursement and what we are approved for at this point in terms of a dollar amount. We are approved at just over $86,000. There's another bucket of funding for Board of Education, which is over 100 that Monroe has been approved for. This 86,000 is again state funding that would be provided to us through the state. It does come from the CARES Act, and that 86,000 is after any and all other grants that we may be able to achieve or find. We already are receiving grant funding through the state health department through a separate funding stream for local health purposes specifically. And then there's FEMA. FEMA reimbursement will be at 75%. This state $86,000 can be utilized for the remaining 25% of any FEMA approved expenses that are not obviously the balance essentially. So with that, give you a sense of where we're at. We probably have spent to date just under $24,000 in costs that are directly attributable to COVID. Obviously, there's a whole variety of different categories out there. There's probably we have an estimate of about another 22 to 23,000 encumbered for other various costs. So, you know, we're right now at about $46,000 that we have incurred. We have received already just under $4,700 in grants from the state health department for very specific, narrowly defined categories that the state health department has allowed us to get 100% reimbursement for those expenses. So the balance that we have current and encumbered is still, it's well below the amount that we have been told the state would cover us, which again is after FEMA and other grant sources. So we feel like we're in a reasonably comfortable position as it relates to that. And with that, that is my update. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Kellogg. I apologize, but I had lost power halfway through your update. But we're back. Moving on to unfinished business.
Mr. Vice Chair, Jason Maurer.
Jason, sorry, go ahead.
If I may just ask the selectman a couple of questions based off of his update.
Please proceed.
Thank you, First Selectman Kellogg. I first just want to say that as somebody who has been advocating for a permanent position, I do appreciate your willingness to utilize this recovery coordinator as a gauging process to look into that position. I do have a couple of questions about that position, as it was not something that had been run by council or the Economic Development Commission. First of which is what the salary of that position will be. It sounds like the salary will hopefully be coming through recovery funds, but if it does not, what our plan for budgeting that position is. Three would be a little bit on the actual job, what the position will be doing as specifics, and 4 would be the procedure that was utilized in the selection and for the individual of this job, and any postings that were done to bring in individuals for the job.
Sure, is that it?
That's it.
Okay. So the position, as I told you earlier, it is a temporary position. So it is strictly compensated on a week-to-week basis. The salary is works out to $1,250 per week. Again, as a temporary position, as I'm sure you're well aware, for the terms of our charter, it is carved out from the classification of the classified service. So there is certainly a job description where I'd be happy to provide to the council, but it is not one that requires council approval. It was not, I certainly did discuss this as I mentioned it to this, reported this to the council before tonight's meeting. I certainly mentioned it to the chair of our Economic Development Commission because there is a relationship there with this role and that role, but it is not strictly an Economic Development Commission role or director. It is very much hazard mitigation and part of the emergency response of this pandemic. So again, I will be happy to after the meeting. I can certainly get that job description out to the council if you'd like to receive a copy of it. The funding of it, like any other emergency expense during this pandemic, like it is being captured and categorized as a COVID-19 emergency expenditure, just like all the plexiglass barriers and the PPE and extra hours that may be incurred by other staff that would not otherwise be budgeted. And as far as the process, this was obviously, again, as a temporary position and one that I needed to act on quickly. Again, we needed to get this up and running. We've had a role, a liaison that's necessary in regional and state long-term recovery committees, and the state is specifically asking us for a person, and a need for a dedicated resource in that regard is something that I had to put in place fairly quickly. So as I have done with other interim positions or temporary positions, it was a somewhat expedited process where I just, utilizing my network, identified a qualified candidate, a very qualified candidate, and move the process forward so we could move on to the business at hand.
Thank you very much for the response. I look forward to receiving the job description. I appreciate the answers to all of the questions, and that satisfies all of my questions.
Any other questions for the first selectman before we move on?
Mr. Chair, may I ask a question? Sorry.
Please, floor is yours.
Jen Aguilar, thank you, Mr. Chair. First Selectman Kellogg, I actually just wanted to thank you for that description of the job and of how it came about. I think I had actually read about I thought I had actually read that it was supposed to be called a czar of recovery, which I thought was funny in one publication. But I wanted to ask if, and maybe this would go to Madam Chairman, if we could, even if there is no business, if in 2 weeks we could keep with our town council's schedule just for, even if it's just for your first selectman updates, because as it's 9 o'clock now, you know, they run long, and I feel like the connection and the updates are just as important as even going through new business. I know the Board of Ed has been meeting regularly. The Board of Finance, of course, has been meeting regularly. But I just request that we meet on our regular schedule until we can meet again in person. That's it, Madam. That's it, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay, as a temporary chair for this meeting only, I will put that forward to our normal chair and go from there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Moving on to unfinished business. There's no unfinished business this evening. New business, resolution number 20-53, to consider and act upon a resolution regarding Ryan Business Systems, Inc. maintenance agreement and Cannon Financial Services, Inc. municipal finance agreement related to copier equipment and service. Mr. First Selectman.
Mr. Chair, if I would just ask if perhaps someone could introduce the full resolution so we can.
Does anybody have the
Mr.
full
Chair,
resolution
this
in
is
front of them?
Yes,
Jonathan, go
Mr.
ahead.
Chair, Mr. Chairman, Jonathan Formicella. Mr. Chairman, I move to bring resolution 20-53 to town council, for the town council to consider. Resolved that Kenneth M. Kellogg, first selectman of the town of Monroe, is authorized to execute and deliver on behalf of the town of Monroe the municipal finance agreement by and between Cannon Finance Services Incorporated and the maintenance agreement by and between Ryan Business Systems Incorporated and any associated documents for the lease and maintenance of Cannon equipment.
Tony Scott,
Jason
second.
Mauer, second.
Do I have a second? Do I have a
Jason
second?
Mauer, second.
Okay. Mr. Kellogg, would you like to start the discussion?
I'd be happy to. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just to recap, I know you have my memo in this regard. The town has an existing 5-year agreement with Ryan Business Systems and Cannon for these services. The services are for both the town and the Board of Education. It is about to expire. Our Director of Technology, Paul Corse, has been working on this and provided working with them, provided us with a new renewal agreement. I'm very pleased that he's been able to secure, again, this is through state pricing. Consider, basically we got significant savings. Well, I don't know how, I guess it's all relative, but I guess as it relates to copiers, it's pretty significant. A decent amount of savings for both the town and the Board of Ed side. we're very, I think, very happy with our current relationship with this provider. I'll let Paul speak to that. I'm pretty sure he's still on. I know you have Frank's memo in this regard as well. He has reviewed this, and you have that. I just want to say that I know that Paul worked really hard on this, and I know that I'd asked him to identify any opportunity that this would provide us to not only save us on our current costs, but actually use the current fiscal year to see if we could come up with a strategy to even lower costs for subsequent fiscal years beyond fiscal year 21, just in terms of the total amount of equipment we have out there and those costs. So with that, Paul, I don't know if you wanted to address this further. One more thing before we go on. I just want to reference that also in your packet is a memo from the superintendent of schools, just acknowledging that Mr. Kabza is aware of this agreement, that he's in support of it, and they understand that the town would allocate their portion of the cost of this agreement to the Board of Ed's budget. With your permission, Mr. Chair, if Paul Kors could just jump in if he wants to add anything further.
Mr. Kors, the floor is yours.
Thank you all. Paul Kors, Director of Technology. As you can see, the savings are fairly significant for both the town and the Board of Ed. We were able to keep some of our newer equipment and actually off lease, and that would be a significant savings, as well as while we will be adding the total number of copiers, we'll be increasing the total number of copiers on the Board of Ed side. That will be replacing dozens and dozens of desktop printers that are in the classrooms. So we will see some significant savings on both the town and the Board of Ed, as it is cheaper per page to print to a copier than it is a desktop print.
All right, so I'm just here. I'll call it.
Is that it?
Okay. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll open the floors for discussion. Dee Dee Martin,
No discussion.
Jen Aguilar,
Jen Aguilar, no discussion.
Jason Mauer,
Jason Mauer, thank you, Mr. Kors, no discussion.
Jonathan,
Jonathan Formicella, no discussion.
Tony,
Tony Scott, no discussion.
Sean, no discussion. Kevin Reed,
Kevin Reed, no discussion.
Andy Lapellis,
Discussion.
Terry, did I skip you?
No discussion, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Well, I'm supposed to go through one more time this, to see if there's any further, but I think we can dispense with that. We can go ahead and call for a vote. Jonathan, am I within my purview to do that?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, call for a vote. Dee Dee Martin,
Dee Dee Martin, I vote yes.
Jennifer Aguilar,
Jen Aguilar, yes.
Jason,
Jason Mauer, aye.
Terry,
Terry Rooney, yes.
Jonathan,
Jonathan Formicella, yes.
Tony Scott,
Tony Scott, yes.
John O'Rourke, yes. Kevin Reed,
Kevin Reed, aye.
Enid Lapellis,
Enid Lapellis, yes.
motion passes 9-0. My apologies with regards to not doing that quite accurately. I did not receive a town council packet. So in addition to losing power, we didn't get a packet. So this is a test tonight for sure. Going on to.
You're doing very well, Sean.
Yes, you've done real good, Sean.
Going on to new business, item B, resolution number 20-54, to consider and act upon a resolution regarding Avenue Enterprise Solution 5-year renewal agreement. Mr. Formicella.
This is Jonathan Formicella. I move that the town council consider and act upon the following resolution. Resolution 20-54. Resolved that Kenneth M. Kellogg, first selectman of the town of Monroe, is authorized to execute and deliver on behalf of the town of Monroe the renewal agreement and any associated documents by and between Avenue Enterprises Solutions for the 5-year renewal agreement for information technology products and services for the town clerk.
I second it.
Okay, moving on for discussion, Mr. First Selectman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Avenue Enterprises currently provides a variety of technology products and software for the town clerk, land records management, verification, index verification, a lot of support services as well. I know the town clerk is on and can certainly answer any more specifics that questions you may have in that regard beyond what's already kind of self-evident from the contract that you have before you. We have an existing 5-year agreement. It's with their prior named ACS. They were renamed Avenue. That agreement expires this month, and we have a renewal agreement before us that goes through 2025 at the same prices as our existing agreement. I want to thank Vita Stone for working to get this renewal in place at favorable cost, and we're certainly happy to turn the floor over to the town clerk Vita Stone if she'd like to add anything further or answer any questions you may have. And as always, you have the town attorney's opinion on this as well.
Thank you, Town Council. This is Vita Stone. I just wanted to add that we have been extremely satisfied with Avenue. They do provide a tremendous amount of technology for us. We have a good working relationship, and I'm very positive in working with them.
Okay, if we can open the floor up for further discussion. Dee Dee Martin?
Dee Dee Martin, no discussion.
Jen Aguilar?
All right, I'm hanging up.
Jen Aguilar, no discussion.
Terry Rooney?
Mr. Chairman, no discussion.
Jonathan Formicella?
Jonathan Formicella, no discussion.
Tony Scott?
Tony Scott, no discussion.
Kevin Reed?
Kevin Reed, no discussion.
Enid Lapellis?
Enid Lapellis, no discussion.
Joan O'Rourke, no discussion. Seeing no discussion, we'll call a vote.
Mr. Vice Chair, Jason Mauer, no discussion. I know you wanted to skip me so that I didn't have a chance to keep the meeting going longer, but I have no discussion anyways.
My fault.
No worries.
Moving on to vote. Dee Dee Martin?
Dee Dee Martin, I vote aye.
Jen Aguilar?
Jen Aguilar, aye.
Jason Mauer?
Jason Mauer, aye.
Terry Rooney?
Terry Rooney, yes.
Jonathan Formicella?
Jonathan Formicella, yes.
Tony Scott?
Tony Scott, aye.
Joan O'Rourke, aye. Kevin Reed?
Kevin Reed, aye.
Enid Lapellis?
Enid Lapellis, aye.
Okay, that passes 9-0. New business, item C. Resolution number 20-55, resolved that Kenneth M. Kellogg, first selectman of the town of Monroe, is authorized to execute and deliver on the behalf of the town of Monroe the tentative agreement and any associated documents by and between the town of Monroe, Monroe Chapter 136-1, Local 136, IFPTE, parentheses, clerical union, close parentheses, for the wage, stipend, and step freeze for all clerical union employees for a period of July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021.
Jonathan Formicella, so moved.
Okay.
Jason Mauer, second.
All right. Okay. Mr. First Selectman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't believe this requires any further description. This was the topic of a prior meeting to discuss collective bargaining matters, and I think the council is aware, although the resolution pretty much says it all, that this will provide an agreement with the clerical union for a wage stipend and step freeze for next fiscal year.
Thank you. Opening the floor to discussion. Dee Dee Martin.
No discussion, just a comment that I think we all express our immense thanks, really, to this union for getting on board and helping us out in this difficult situation.
I certainly concur with that.
Jen Aguilar.
Jen Aguilar, I'd like to second what Ms. Martin said. I was thank you to the union, and it wasn't, as we understand it, wasn't I'm losing the word. Contested. And these are hard times, and we hope it helps in the next year, because it's going to be a rough year.
Jason Bauer.
Jason Maurer, I concur with what has been said and no further discussion.
Terry Rooney.
Terry Rooney, no further discussion.
Jonathan Formicella.
Jonathan Formicella, no further discussion.
Tony Scott.
Tony Scott, no further discussion.
Sean O'Rourke, no further discussion. Kevin Reed.
Kevin Reed, no discussion.
Enid Lapellis.
Enid Lapellis, no discussion.
Okay, seeing no further discussion, I move to a vote. Dee Dee Martin.
Dee Dee Martin, I vote aye.
Jen Aguilar.
Jen Aguilar, aye.
Jason Maurer.
Jason Maurer, aye.
Terry Rooney.
Terry Rooney, aye.
Jonathan Formicella.
Jonathan Formicella, aye.
Tony Scott.
Tony Scott, aye.
Sean O'Rourke, aye. Kevin Reed.
Kevin Reed, aye.
Enid Lapellis.
Enid Lapellis, aye.
Okay, motion passes 9-0. Moving on to new business, item D. Acceptance of the following donations that individually exceeded $1,500. I, in-kind donations of personal protective equipment from Grace Farms Relief Fund for Connecticut. II, 5,000 from an anonymous donor to the food pantry. III, 2,500 from Connex Credit Union to the Sprint for Monroe. IB, 1,500 from Newtown Savings Bank to the Sprint for Monroe.
Jonathan Formicella, so moved.
Jason Maurer, second.
Do we need any discussion, or can we go to a vote?
Vote.
Dee Dee Martin.
Dee Dee Martin, I vote aye.
Jen Aguilar.
Jen Aguilar, aye.
Jason Maurer.
Jason Maurer, an extremely grateful aye.
Terry Rooney.
Terry Rooney, aye.
Jonathan Formicella.
Jonathan Formicella, aye.
Tony Scott.
Tony Scott, aye.
Sean O'Rourke, aye. Kevin Reed.
Kevin Reed, aye.
Enid Lapellis.
Enid Lapellis, aye.
Thank you for the generous donations by all those that were previously mentioned. Thank you. Okay. On to second participation. Are there any members of the audience that are with us this evening that want to participate?
Nicholas Kapoor.
Do we have any others? Seeing no others, the floor recognizes Nick Kapoor for second public participation.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. I hope everyone's doing well. Nicholas Kapoor, 109 Meadows End Road. I just wanted to follow up on something that Councilwoman Aguilar said. So I serve as a commissioner on the Commission on Human Rights and Opportunities up in the Capitol in Hartford. And we're a state agency, and one of the things that we do is we have to approve affirmative action plans of all state agencies. And we do this either annually or biannually, depending on the size of the agency. And every year, the Department of Corrections, just for example, comes to us and we set goals for the types of people that different agencies have to hire based on race and gender, based on census data. And so, just for an example, with correction officers in the state of Connecticut, they had 164 Black male goals. But in the reporting year, they only hired 55 Black males and 88 white males. And every year that either DOC, which is the Department of Corrections, or the Department of Emergency Services and Public Protection, which is where the state police are, they have similar goals, but they always don't meet those goals of hiring Black male and Black female and Hispanic male candidates. And we consistently ask them, what are you doing to diversify your ranks? And DOC this last year has put a diversity task force together. They're going out to different parts in the state that have more diverse areas to look for people to hire in these positions. And so at least at DOC, they're doing a lot of stuff to get these numbers up, but sometimes the applicant pools don't have diverse candidates in them. So I think some towns are facing similar things, but I know at the state level with DOC and emergency services and public protection, they are trying to diversify. They really are doing some good things. If anybody wants any more data on diverse hires in state agencies, I'd be happy to provide it. The SDE, the State Department of Education, is doing the same thing. The legislature created the Minority Teacher Recruitment Task Force, which has been operating for several years. Teaching is another hard profession to find diverse candidates. So at the state level, there's a lot going on. And I hope it bears some fruit in the next couple of years. Just wanted to add that to your discussion. It was good to see everyone. Hope you're all doing well. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman.
That's great information. Thank you, Mr. Kapoor.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Kapoor. Is there anyone else who would like to participate in second public participation? Hearing none, there's no further business. I hereby declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chair.
Seconded. Seconded by Enid Lapellis. Good night.
Stay well,
Good night.
everybody.